Hi, my name is Haley Springer, and I decided to do my presentation on the effect of creatine supplementation with or without resistance training. Resistance training on muscle mass in postmenopausal women. So, the overview and selection criteria that I had for my project was I wanted to make sure all of them were randomized, and I also wanted them to be different durations so we could kind of look at the effects of it on short term, middle term, and long term. Also, obviously, making sure that some of the trials had no resistance training, and seeing 1 rep maxes and muscle mass that was able to be gained through those trials. And then, of course, all my sources are peer reviewed articles found from PubMed. Going over what creatine does inside our body quickly. So ATP coming from our mitochondria, and then we have creatine that is added into our system either through supplementation or whatever. So we have our ATP and creatine. The ATP will give the phosphate to creatine, which we'll see here in the middle with the creatine phosphate, and then we are left with ADP. And then we'll have another enzyme called creatine kinase come in, and it will quickly take off the phosphate from the phosphocreatine, which will and put it onto the ADP, which will allow for a rapid and quick regeneration of ATP that can be used for energy for muscle contraction. So the ATP will be used, and then the creatine will then go off and go back into the system will be reused again. So this will allow us to regenerate ATP very quickly by having that extra creatine in there. Then going over the 3 trials that I did. So the first one that we see there is called Creatine Supplementation Improves Muscular Performance in Older Women. So this one was a 7-day trial, super short. It had 30 women total in the group. The age range went from 58 to 71. And this one was I think it's kind of interesting the way they did this trial. So there was test one, test two, and test three. So in test one, the ladies performed a bench press, leg press, 1 rep max, and they also did some other functional tests as well. And then they came back a week later for test two. They did the same thing. There was no supplementation in between that time. A week later, they came back and did test two, did the same exact thing. And then after test two is when they decided to randomize giving out the placebo and the creatine. So there was a small but significant increase in the bench press and leg press in the 1 rep max for those two. A body mass increase of 0.49 kilograms and fat-free mass of 0.52, and improvements in functional tests for those who did have the creatine. And the relevance of this, it shows how rapid the intramuscular creatine affects that can improve training performance without training. So with this one, it's really cool. We get to see how quickly having that creatine in our system can improve our performance. Our second trial that we're looking at was 12 weeks, and the name of that one was Long-Term Creatine Supplementation Improves Muscular Performance During Resistance Training in Older Women. That one was 12 weeks, a double-blind, random controlled trial. The ladies who got the creatine had 5 grams a day, and then obviously the ladies who didn't got the placebo. They trained for 3 days out of the week, and the age range was give or take 5 years of 65. So the creatine plus the resistance training produced a greater increase in fat-free mass. So they gained 3.2%. And muscle mass, they gained 2.8%, just about 3%. And they were able to perform their 1 rep max for the bench press, knee extension, and bicep curls. They all perform that better than the placebo group. So from this one, it shows that creatine can increase hypertrophy and strength in a 12-week resistance training program. Our last one with the title of Creatine Supplementation and Resistance Training in Vulnerable Older Women, a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled clinical trial. So this one shows us that for 24 weeks, let me backtrack here. So for this one, it was 24 weeks, and there was 4 branches. There was placebo, no resistance training, just creatine as well, placebo plus resistance training, creatine plus resistance training. These were 60 older women. They did not give me the ages for this one. And the creatine and resistance training increased lean muscle mass, leg strength versus the non-resistant training groups. And then the creatine plus resistance training showed much more gains than the placebo plus resistance training. So this shows that longer duration can allow individuals to build lean muscle mass. Heading on to our next slide here, we're going to look at some of the graphs that I got. Only two of the trials were able to show me some figures. So this figure is from the first one, the 7-day trial. So we can see here that the creatine increased comparing to the first and second trials that they had. We see an increase there. We do slightly see an increase in the placebo, although I am a believer that, obviously with repetition, somebody gets better at it, whether you're training for it or not. So, I do feel that the creatine within the system did help those individuals who had it perform a little bit better. Then going on to our next one. So this is our second trial, 12-week trial, looking at some of the figures here. I have the actual numbers here. So for the bench press, the ladies who had the creatine increased 5.1% for the bench press, 3.9% for the leg extensions, and then 8.8% for the bicep curl. And then we can look at the table over here and see that there's a significant increase in body mass, fat-free mass, and muscle mass for the individuals who had the creatine, and a decrease in body fat and body mass versus placebo. Then our next slide here, we have our comparison table, being able to look at everything in a more clean concept. Things we've gone over. And then our conclusion here, our overall takeaways, creatine supplementation paired with the resistance training can increase gains in older slash postmenopausal women. And then looking at it at muscle mass, when taking creatine and pairing it with resistance training for an extended period of time, of studies have shown an increase in lean muscle mass, but it does vary some. Of course, everybody's a little different. People are going to experience things a little bit differently, and dosage and duration is extremely important. For those with short term, the loading can help with performance because of an increase in PCR and water in the muscles, while long-term supplementation, 12 to 24 weeks, shows more true muscle gains. Obviously, our limitations are, the sample sizes were quite small. Age ranges were kind of large. It wasn't super confined, and there was different dosages per individual. So obviously, I feel like the people who got more grams probably produced a little bit more. Overall, I found this project to be super interesting and great to learn as a personal trainer. I love learning about the body and how things work. Especially as a woman, it was great to learn about how creatine can help us build muscle. And especially as we get older, it's important for men and women to keep exercising and building muscle and maintaining muscle to help with bone density. Obviously, creatine isn't going to help create more bone density, but the more muscle we have, the better our bones are going to be. So it's super important for individuals to be educated on this topic and stay active throughout their entire life so we can stay independent as we get older. And yeah, let's go ahead and pop on over. Here's my references, and thank you so much. Oh, let me stop recording.